In this video, I'm going to show you how I used a spreadsheet that contained 6 years of A-level, both A-level and also AS music technology exam data, and I basically turned it into a revision source for my students. And what I want to do is basically walk you through how I did this, the tools that I used, particularly using Gemini, and the impact and the results that I got from my students. The purpose of this was I was trying to improve the revision resources that I'm giving my students, and especially using interactivity and much more independence when my students revise. So one thing I just want to mention really quickly is that obviously I've used this for A-level music technology, but what you can also do is use this for any subject as long as you have the examiner report, as long as you have a breakdown of the questions and the answers and which areas that may be difficult for students. So traditionally, revision usually meant sending them a PDF like this, OneNote pages, team notes, whatever it was, YouTube links, and basically I would have them revise off topics that they didn't really understand to a high level yet. The problem with that, obviously, is that you haven't really got a lot of interactivity. Opening these files, interpreting this content, connecting to the exams, etc., that might have been too many steps for a lot of students. So what this is really centered around is this data set that I've got. And basically what this is it's a breakdown of all of the past papers from my exam board. And this is broken down into the year that it was released, whether or not this was an AS paper or an A-level paper, the questions, how many marks it was worth, the type of question. Now this is quite an important one. So this type of question is an important part of the data set. What I wanted to do was to break down some more information into what kind of questions that they were going to be asked, whether this is practical questions or open-ended questions or multiple choice questions or whatever it was. Alongside of this, and this is where it gets to be really, really good, is the principal examiner's report. So this basically is how the students in the country did on a particular question. And what I did is I went through all of these and I basically wanted to find out from this essentially what the students did right or what they did wrong within a certain test. I can't stress enough that this data set is really what is important for this resource. The AI needs to be drawing on some type of data, and this is what essentially everything is going to be based around. So once the spreadsheet was complete, I uploaded it into Gemini, and I asked it basically to build an interactive resource. So at first this was a filter that they could use for individual topics, which is fine, but a spreadsheet can do this, can't it? What I really wanted to do was to take this much, much further. I wasn't necessarily interested in the questions from the spreadsheet that were the easy questions. I was more interested in the harder questions that the students may come up against on these tests. So what I did is I told the AI I wanted to extract out all of the harder questions based around the principal examiner report. It then took all of these individual questions and basically filtered all these out into any one of these individual topics. But again, this was the harder questions from each one of these examen years. So now what I've got is this interactive revision resource where the students are going to be getting the harder questions of each practice paper, and then this allows the student to then go a little bit further into understanding what topics that they need to revise for. So why was this important? Well, what I wanted to do was to approach this much more from a teacher standpoint of showing my students a little bit more of a tricky part to the exam and really testing them on a certain topic or a level that they might find a little bit challenging. In other words, I'm trying to get my students to focus their revision on really where it matters. So this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, which is this. There is a button down here on the lower right hand side, and basically what this does is it will allow you to add features, AI features, within this resource. By pressing this, what it does is that it embeds what they call an API directly into my resource. So now if the student didn't understand a certain topic, or if they wanted to just dive a little bit further and maybe explain something or get other types of questions. Now they can. So this is the resource that I created, and as you can see, what you can do is you can filter this out by topic. With this topic that you can see the individual questions, you can see now the examiner comment, and they can read through this, they can put this into another AI and get it to explain a variety of different things. But more importantly, what I wanted to show was how it will embed the API into this resource so they can ask it further questions. So what happens if a student didn't really understand this type of question? What they're then going to do is they're going to click on this explain concept. This might take a bit of time for it to load, but once it does, what it'll do is it'll explain this concept. So what I've done is I've asked my students that if they have any sort of problem with this topic or this kind of question, what they should do is highlight all of this stuff and put it back into an AI and ask it more and more questions. So what this really does is that this bridges the gap between recall and understanding. It's a Bloom's taxonomy jump from remembering to comprehending and to applying it. So then I added one more layer to this, and I asked the AI if it could suggest other questions that were based around this. So again, what this does is that it will use the API in this resource to contact the AI, and then it'll explain this more. Students can then take this concept and immediately practice more questions like it. They can copy and paste any one of these into an AI and ask it more questions, ask it for more visuals. I think that with the explaining this concept and this suggesting other questions, I think what this harks back to is the idea that you're trying to encourage independent learning with these students. So I gave this to my students for their preparation for the June exam, and the feedback was overwhelming. A lot of students came back with a lot of different comments about how they were able to use this to revise for topics that were a little bit more difficult for them. They were talking about how they could copy and paste these concepts into an AI to get it to produce more examples. In general, it was just a really great tool that they could use for their revision. So really, what can we take away from this? Well, whether you're a music technology teacher or biology or history or whatever it is, with this data, which includes the examiner reports and a structured spec, you can build something like this, I think, quite easily. I do want to say that I was going back and forth with the AI, asking it questions, getting it to include certain aspects about this. But once I got the foundation for it, it was easy.